You were not meant to do life alone. And the way to a faster, bigger, more beautiful life is having connection to others. Welcome, everybody. It's Megan Holly, and this is Taking Flight. I am so glad you are here. How are you? How are you feeling? What is lighting you up? My favorite question to ask people, what is lighting you up? Because even in the worst of days and seasons, there's something we can find that is lighting us up, at least a little bit, like a little flicker of a flame. Today, we're talking about finding our tribe and how that can help us really foster a version of ourselves that feels good and expansive in whatever that means to you. And it's going to be different for everybody. And so, if you're somebody who has a strong kind of core group of humans around you already, this episode will help you to strengthen that and kind of maybe dig a little bit deeper in how you all can just be more enriched in each other's lives. If you are watching this and you're kind of going, "Ooh, this might be the perfect thing for me." Welcome. Hi. Um because you're feeling maybe a little desolate or a little tiny bit kind of on your own boat floating in the ocean, if you will, and you're kind of like, "I don't have a tribe of people that make me really feel kind of seen, heard, and connected to." This will also help. So, no matter where you are in kind of your community and your tribe can be anybody, right? And for me, it's such a vast, beautiful space because I've got family and friends who I love and adore. I've got clients and people in my small business world that I love and just appreciate so much. And then I have my wider community here on YouTube and Instagram and all these things who have become such a huge part of my tribe. Some of them I talk to regularly in some way, shape, or form, and it's beautiful. So, all that to say is your tribe can come from so many places and spaces. And we are so lucky in this world to be able to kind of, I always say, collect gems of humans and kind of have them be in our world because. In my opinion, having the spice of life through people who think differently and feel differently and can maybe test you a little bit, but then also celebrate you is the most beautiful thing possible. And I think it's what's really important in this life to kind of really step into ourselves. And so today we're going to talk about why community creates confidence. And so I'm all about kind of creating our most confident self. And I'm all about community. So this is a no-brainer to be right here on the podcast. And um, what I really feel to be true is that when we are how do I say this? We grow faster. We grow faster when we are witnessed. Mm. We grow faster when we are witnessed. And how beautiful is that? And the word witnessed, like, doesn't really something that we think about when we're thinking about ourselves out here in the world, going to work or talking with a client or going to coffee with a friend, but we're being witnessed through their eyes on a literal everyday basis, right? The barista at your favorite, hopefully local little like hole in the wall coffee bar, they're witnessing you. They're taking in something about you, whether it's just the essence that you bring, the smile that they see every time, or maybe something that you're very helpful. Maybe you always, help do something when you're in front of them. People are seeing you do these things and they're clocking in what they, love about you and what they experience within you. And so when we're kind of co-regulating and we're having this shared experiences in life with other people, whether it's, a one-off with somebody that you may never see again, or people who are here with you through all seasons of life and everybody in between, when we have these co-regulated experiences, we're able to kind of have a temperature check on ourselves, but then we also able to give back to the world and our tribe and our people differently too. So how beautiful is that? So um our the way that we kind of operate in our everyday life. Again, going back to that coffee shop moment. If you're the person who is standing there and you're on autopilot and you're not kind of taking in the world around you and you don't see that maybe somebody's struggling to stand up or sit down and you're not able to even like it's not even on your radar versus the person who's kind of self-aware and you're kind of grounded in who you are and you're able to be a little bit more present and you're able to, oh my goodness, and help somebody up or something like that, right? Those two versions of ourselves, and any of us, let me just say, any of us can be either version of those at any given time, right? But Where would you want to be more? I want to be more self-aware, more personal, want to be more grounded and actually like in my life and intentional versus on autopilot and missing the ways that we can have more connection, if that makes sense, right? And so I know like we've come out of the era like people calling people Karens, right? Like Karens get a bad rap because they're not quite like self-aware enough to have a productive conversation sometimes, right? That at least that's the essence of like what that whole meaning behind, a Karen is. And sorry to any Karens out there. In fact, I know and love quite a few Karens, so you're loved. But that essence to me is something that happens when we are not taking in our surroundings, right? We are only letting every single little inflection of feeling that is coming up in us and we're frustrated and we're just going rah, 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 right at the person in front of us or the situation in front of us. And that's okay. There's a time and a place to have all those feelings. But if that's the way we operate, what are we doing to the community around us, right? And so this episode is more of kind of like a look into how we are moving about the cabin, if you will, on a regular basis and how aware of our emotions we are. I know when I'm feeling a more frustrated day or maybe I'm a little bit more sad. The last few weeks I've just had a lot of really like it's been a roller coaster for me. With my dog going through some stuff and being diagnosed with diabetes and just having a couple of times when we thought this is not good. This is the end for her. And then her bouncing back like and then other things, a lot of people, many of people just going through hard things in my life. I have been like, whoop, ba-doop, ba-doo. Like I have been on the roller coaster, highs of highs and lows of lows and all the things in between. And I know that that's no different for most of us, right? And so what I have found these last couple of weeks is I have operated so differently than I would have in the past through these hardships. Going to celebrations of lives and going to doctor's appointments for my dog, to somebody who's historically has a lot of medical anxiety and, all of that stuff really has been hard for me over my life. But all of a sudden, I'm finding myself operating differently because I'm utilizing myself and the perspective I have and my community around me and communication in order to make that all come together. So communicating to myself, I am really frustrated right now. I'm really upset right now. And so I might not be my best self, but what can I do to communicate that, hey, I still have to do this or have a client call or go to a shoot, but I need to communicate to myself first and foremost what that's going to look like and be realistic with the outcome of it. And then maybe even articulate to them, hey, I am having a little bit of a hard day, but I am here to have the best experience with you. Here we go, right? And like how that conversation can open up kind of the pathways for people to not only understand each other better, but also to make the best of harder times, harder situations, because we can't erase them. They won't go away. They will always, continue coming in different seasons and different packages in different sizes and shapes and all of the things. But what we can do is communicate better. And our community can get stronger when we do that. So how are we being aware on a day-to-day basis of how we are operating within our community, even in the harder times, but also in the good times too, because sometimes we think it's easier to operate in those times, but not always. So taking a moment and think, how am I kind of attracting or deflecting good conversation, good community through my everyday life? Hopefully that makes sense. That was just like a flow here. Actually, everything on this podcast is a flow, stream of conscious. I have a couple little notes to keep me kind of on par, but there's no editing. It's just what comes out. And so I really hope that landed for you because I think that's so important. And I've seen this shift in myself within that as I use those examples of kind of operating differently with some scary things going on with my own life and my dog and all those things. Like just I see how I operate differently because of the work that we're doing, right? And so the other thing that authentic conversation and connections to our tribe can do is prevent a little bit more of burnout. We all get to those points where we're like, we've taken on too much, we've done too much, we've said too much. All the muches have happened. And what do? Right? Sometimes we get quiet, we go dark. Sometimes we find ourselves in negative emotions, frustration, stress, all the things. We might feel angry. We might be resentful of things, people, places, because we are too many places, too many things to too many people. And it's a beautiful thing, but it also can be a very stressful thing. So how our tribe can come along and our community, whatever word feels most authentic to you, can come along is that we can, again, going back to that communication, we can talk through. We understand that we're not alone a lot of times. We can articulate feelings and we might feel like, hey, a solution, or at least, if nothing else, maybe not a solution, but a outlook can come our way from the people around us. And so how beautiful is it that we can create more confidence within that all, which is kind of the stem of this whole section of the conversation, is that we can create more confidence within all of it because we're not allowing ourselves to be alone in hardship and burnout and all of that. And so this little next part, to me, it's like, how are we, if you're somebody, especially if you're somebody who's listening that feels maybe a little desolate on that boat in the ocean, that's a little bit alone right now. And maybe it's reality. There's just not a lot of good quality connections in your life, or maybe it's just a perception that you have. Because that happens sometimes too. I've been there. We all have that feeling of like, well, they have too much on their plate, so they can't help. Or I don't want to bother them, so I won't ask. So we put ourselves on that boat by ourselves, even though there's a few little life rafts, or there's, a little, what are those called? Dinghy? Is that what that's called? Like a tiny little boat, I think. Um, Even though those are there and those people are there, they're floating right next to us or they're attached to the side of our boat, we're not utilizing them because of our own perceptions of what they can or cannot be capable of. Right. So if you are worried about that, you could always start the conversation with them. Do you have the capacity to support me in this way? That gives them the ability to say yes or no, or yes, but in this way. Now, some people who haven't done some work on people pleasing, they might, jump into it in a different way, but that's not the thing we're worried about. What we're worried about is the open communication and attracting the things and the people that really suit us in this season. And so, how do we be fully ourselves, right? That's a little bit tricky because sometimes we don't even know what is fully ourselves, especially in a season that's maybe unknown or absolutely unprecedented. Like we've never went through something quite like this, so we don't even know what being fully us or articulating what we fully need is. But the one way is, right, like our kind of quirky, weird portions of ourselves are magnets to people, right? They or deflect, right? The magnets have been turned and they're kinda like, "Ooh, ooh, ooh." And you'll find out, you hear the sentiment people will say, "You'll find out who your real friends are when the going gets tough," kind of a thing. Well, maybe they never were quite the right fit. It's just that it took something harder or, off the beaten path to really show it. But when we are intrinsically just showing up with our quirky, weird, whatever versions of ourselves we are, we find those people and like them knowing that maybe you are a basket case when it comes to stressful situations, and they know that and they love that for you, and they're going to kind of walk you through that differently because maybe they're the grounded, like just centered person when it comes to stressful things or emergent things. Wonderful. Then you can balance off each other with that. But what if you were holding back on that? They won't, like, no, we don't know enough about each other, right? I know that my husband and I, we ping pong into different versions of ourselves during different stages, right? I have a endless flow of patience until I don't, but that's just human, right? But I have a lot of patience. So when we're going through, I'm just going to keep on the dog example. When we're going through trying to give her insulin shots, there's times when she's fighting it. We know she's feeling her best when she is because she doesn't want that to happen. It doesn't feel good, right? And so I think like you can see when one of our buckets is dwindling and he's maybe frustrated, I can step in, right? And if he just kept like keeping that to himself and just not showing his quirks that show me, oh, he's losing it, then what are we doing here? Right? Because then I can flow in and say, hey, I've got this. Go take a breath, go take a lap, go walk away, and I've got this. So how do we do that? How do we make sure that our quirks, our communications, our full-fledged self is always operating, right, at its best capacity, right? At its best capacity for that moment. And it's not going to be perfect. It just isn't and it can't be. But what can we do in order to kind of let it flow? Because then the people around us can help support us better, right? And in fact, that's just such a beautiful thing because then we can help ourselves better too. So the other thing is too, and this is something I've had to do a lot of work on, and it's not always easy for me, even still to this day, is not dimming the energy in which you are feeling at that moment to fit into a box, right? And kind of goes back to that whole thing of like being open and communicative about how you're feeling. That's okay to do. I know sometimes people are like, well, I don't want to ruin their day or I don't want to whatever. You can do it in an eloquent way. You don't have to like bombard somebody with everything and just like totally um you know, suck out everything that they have going on. There's a way to do it with that it's human nature to connect and debrief somebody on what's going on without feeling like you're like, well, whatever. You're like, nothing matters in your life or whatever. There's a way. And so we don't have to dim our energy or amp it up to where we think it needs to be, right? We can find our happy medium. And most of us can ebb and flow. We can be like, that's duality of life. That's one of my words for 2025. I almost said 2026. We're not there yet. This episode will not be in 2026. But in 2025, duality was one of my words because sometimes, like last week, there was days where I like in the same day, within a couple of hours, I was like laughing and like cry laughing with somebody and then like crying because I was so sad. Literally. And it was a matter of literally, if you think about it, matter of minutes sometimes where this can happen. But being real with like, that is the roller coaster of life. My brother always says life isn't fair. It's not fair. But what can we do to navigate through those things, right? Because when it's feeling, you know, so just discombobulated and, one minute we're up here, one minute we're down here, and we just don't know how to move through it. How can we make sure that we're allowing the energy that we have going to just be safe to be in, right? And then of course, like right, especially when it's the low energy field, it doesn't feel good to stay there for long term. Nobody really wants to feel down and out and upset and sad all the time, right? But how do we honor those feelings and let the people around us support us in whatever way we need? So many times we hunker in, right? Myself included. We're like, I'm just gonna move through it. I'm gonna do this. But why not let the right people in? You don't have to let everybody in, but like let the right people in. So making sure our energy is staying where it needs to be, where it feels the most authentic. And that might feel weird to say out loud because you're like, well, it does not feel authentic to me to be sad and down in the dumps. It doesn't. But how human is it? Very, right? Um, because kind of tying into that, the power of shared values, um, and creating more and more conversation around safe spaces and safe people. Those honest conversations with people are what really make good, strong connections. And then the next time you're in a season that is hard or you're super, super celebrating, you can really like you've already done the work. Those people are going to be there. The celebrators. The people who are really good at being there for you when you're not, right? And hopefully we all have somebody. But can we go even deeper? Can we go even deeper? I know for us in this season with our dog, it has opened up a lot of conversation for my husband and I. We have shifted so much perspective, even with our own communication with each other. It's incredible. It's incredible, I'm not gonna lie, and it's all because of something that's hard. Honestly, we were on autopilot with a lot of things, in certain conversations and in certain portions of the way that we operated, and all of a sudden, we are having these different kind of conversations because of something hard. So, right, that duality again, my gosh, it just really tries to, like, you know, teach us lessons time and time again, but those shared values come up, those honest conversations are created, and then we know time and time again kind of how to keep kind of I don't even want to say replicating because every hard season or every celebration season is going to be different because it might be a different hard or a different celebration. But you keep unearthing that conversation, that confidence in your conversation and confidence in the people around you. And so where can you go to seek out more beauty in your connections, right? Maybe it's the person you're literally sitting on the couch with at night. Have you kind of lost like the knack for diving a little deeper every so often? Start there. Maybe it's your community. Maybe a lot of people in my community are out there and are content creators or business owners. And is it in your community? Can you ask different questions? Can you get a little bit more raw and real with them? Can you put something out there that kind of starts fostering more conversation? How beautiful would that be? Right? Friends, family, all of that. Do a little bit of an audit. Like, where have I went on autopilot? Where have I just allowed myself to just be going through the motions? I had one of my friends was in a quiet season, and I wasn't quite sure if she wanted to be in there, if she wanted to be pulled out of it, if she wanted an inflection of shifts or changes. And she's one of my closest friends, and I was kind of like shell shocked. I didn't know what to do because I didn't want to rip her out of where she was if that's where she needed to be for a moment. But I also didn't want to leave her there if she was putting a hand up, but I didn't know it because that's not her MO. Sometimes it's just, I'm just, I need my space, right? But how do I know if I don't ask? So I literally sent a text. It was easy as this. Hey, if you're up for it, can we chat on the phone sometime this week? And I was kind of like nervous about that because I didn't want to put somebody in a position to say sure if they weren't feeling it. But I also want to just have a check in. My intuitive self, my soul was telling me she needed a little bit of a check-in. And guess what? We got on the phone call and it was beautiful. And she shared things that she was moving through and talking through. I did as well. And then we talked about something we could do that will light us up soon. So together. What if I would have just been like, they'll definitely reach out when they're out of the needing to be quiet for a moment. What if I didn't? And what if that's exactly like the antibody, if you will, to that whole situation was just that little bit of a text. And so again, for your people. And if you're looking for new surrounding people, where to start for that? Well, kind of the similar thing, right? Do you have places you go frequently? Maybe you do go to a coffee shop, maybe even at work. Can you start up conversations differently with people? Again, going off autopilot. You might walk by somebody, you're like, that person kind of seems cool, but I never really talk to them. I only see them in the cafeteria, or I only see them, when we're passing each other going to the bathroom, like whatever. But like, what if you just started a conversation and just, I don't know, complimented them on something to like just the easy opener, right? Could be the best thing you ever did. If you're seeking some different people, put yourself in, maybe sign up for a class or a community type thing, a fun run. I don't know. I'm just thinking, well, it's about to be winter. There's no fun runs going to be happening here in the Midwest, but maybe where you live, it'll be warmer. I don't know. But can you put yourself in a place of something that lights you up that you might meet new people? Go to do some charity work, go to a gala, go to a shelter, go somewhere where you might meet other like-minded people and start there. You might not find, somebody, right next door, but you never know. You also might. So put yourself into different places that are already kind of natural for you to maybe go to, or you would go to and you haven't done yet, or you've been itching to do, right? Like, oh, I want to do a little bit more work in the community. Find some things. Go into a Facebook community group and ask, hey, looking for, something to give back in the community. People will fill up those comments and you will find something quickly. And I guarantee at some point you'll find somebody that's at least somewhat interesting to you that you'll connect with in some way. And who knows what'll flourish from there. So creating that tribe. So be the one who reaches out. This just made me think about one of my little notes just made me think of when I was in, was it sixth or seventh grade? Doesn't matter, irrelevant. I was a dancer, but I was starting into competitive dance. And I had known many of the girls that I had danced with for years because a lot of us were there since we were 3, 4, 5. And, but for some reason I just felt called to like have, I don't know, I guess I've just always truly been this version of me in some way, shape, or form. But I felt called to reach out to somebody. And I asked my mom, hey, I think there was like a list, I believe, that had like all the girls that were in the competitive teams and on what teams they were on. And I was like, Mom, can I call somebody on there? And I called and was just like, hey, can I talk to so-and-so? And I don't even remember the conversation, but somehow maybe their mom and my mom set up, like, we did something. I don't remember the first thing we ever did. Maybe we just went over to one. I don't know if I went there, whatever. Besides the point, but we did something, just like hanging out some way, shape, or form, and literally became one of my absolute best friends for my whole entire life. Like all the things. Like, we were inseparable. We have so many memories together. But like, what if I didn't take the initiation? So, kind of the initiation rule: be the one who reaches out, whether it's for a new connection, a new friendship, or to rekindle something, to talk differently with somebody. Be the one who does it. Yeah. Because we're always waiting. Oh, well, we don't want to bother, or we don't know what they are thinking. No, we don't. And they're thinking the same thing. So be the initiator. And what's the worst that happens? They don't answer. They never reply to your email, your text, or whatever. They are too busy, whatever. If they aren't going to make it a priority, then I don't know. But also give a little bit of grace, because if it's something new, it just might be feel different and be whatever. But try it out. It's all that you can do at the end of the day. Um, so at the end of the day, I think our tribe and our community is something that is so invaluable to us, and I think we can easily take it for granted, and we can go on autopilot with all of it. And so, how can you do just something that ignites you to feel your kind of best self within it, and then find people or dive deeper with the people you already have that really just sets you on fire, and just sets you up for feeling like no matter where you are or what's going on in life, you've got this tribe that maybe challenges you, that maybe celebrates you differently than people. A lot of times in our family dynamics, we all love our families, but there's something to be said for somebody like right outside that zone of comfort that might just be the person that gets you feeling different, even in your family, right? And changing the roles within that. And your family could be literally the people that you were, born into and, live and were created alongside with all of your life, or your family could be a made family that you have picked and chosen your gems of humans. But either way, it's up to you to be the initiator. So make sure that initiation rule comes into play, and you initiate some conversations, some cool moments for yourself and the people around you. And if you're still here at the end of this episode, tag somebody who makes you feel special. Let them know that. Tag them and say something beautiful about them, or some way that they've enriched your world. Let's make this a love fest, if nothing else. I mean, literally, if you take nothing away from this, let's just share and spread the love. My goodness, we know we need it in this world. So tag somebody and make their day a little bit brighter. And I'm sure it will be reciprocated at some point. And I would love to love on you as well. So drop an emoji and I will send a little love your way. And go on into the week and have the intentionality of creating some beautiful connections, my friends. I will see you next time.